Hi everyone.
Hello, I'm Bram.
My name is Steven.
Steven, last time you showed me something about dev containers. That was really nice. You got me really excited. So what do you have in store for me this time around?
Well, in that case, I have some good news for you. Because we're going to take that dev containers to the next level.
Oh, can't wait. Show me.
So what I want to talk about is GitHub Codespaces.
Okay.
GitHub Codespaces also been around for a few months already, but it's awesome.
Okay.
Because basically what it does is everything we talked about in the previous episode about dev containers. It just in that example we said, okay, you still need an EDA and you need a Docker desktop and you need a good machine to work on that. Well, they said, okay, what if you just needed a browser?
A browser?
Nothing more.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
So
I got a browser.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same example we used last time.
Yeah.
And as you can see, it's here on the GitHub.
Okay.
But instead of going to pull it into my local machine, I'm going to say, hey, if I go to this button, normally it stands on local, so you can pull it locally.
Yeah.
But there's also a button, Codespaces. And if you click on that and you say, create a code space, it's going to spin up that container image from dev containers.
The same one, yeah.
In a cloud environment hosted by GitHub.
Okay.
And it shows, as you can see, it's showing me a Visual Studio code application inside my browser.
Okay.
And basically what you're seeing now is just the same things you saw when we opened that solution locally on machines. So you see it's setting up remote connections, it's building up my code space, and I didn't have any preparation. There was no image or there was no environment ready. I just pressed that button and it's now creating it.
This was all you did.
This takes a few minutes,
but of course.
It's not long.
No.
And then you have an environment inside your browser where you can work with.
Wow, it blows my mind.
It's amazing. So while it's spinning up, because it takes a few minutes.
So let me ask you a question. It has the same functionality and everything. If you spin up two, you can have networking between all that.
Yeah. So there are a few complications, but it's pretty much works exactly the same as it would locally. So it's really awesome how they
plugins,
everything. So if we go to that, let's take a look at this page. So this is the containers dev page. And you see they have a specific support for GitHub Codespaces. Yeah. And what this does is here you can define inside your dev containers configuration. You can define what that code space would needs to know.
Okay.
So in this case, you see an example configuration about, hey, besides this repository, you should also have knowledge about this other repository that's linked to this project. So like you said, you have a front end or a back end, you can say, okay, you need to know about each other because we're working in cohesion.
Yeah.
So that you can, that's something you can configure inside your dev containers. But you can also customize your code space environment itself. And in this example, you see that what it does is it says, okay, if you open a new code space, I want you to open these files by default. So the readme file and maybe a configuration file.
That's handy for onboarding and
So you can really customize how that code space environment should look.
Yeah.
And if you go back to that page we had, you see it's done already.
Yeah, so that's pretty fast.
That's very fast. And you can see it opened the preview from the readme, but it's just amazing how everything looks the same as if it would be.
It does, even the console, everything.
Yeah. So let's go to my terminal on my local machine. Again, let's take a look if I'm not cheating or anything.
Yeah.
So do I have a node version on this machine?
No, you don't.
I don't.
No.
So let's exit this because I don't need it anymore. But if I go inside that terminal, you see I have a node version.
And this is just your browser, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's just my browser. And if we go inside this Explorer, you can just open pages, edit code. You can say hello beta talks world, and you can just make adjustments, save using the keyboard shortcuts that you're used to.
So no, okay, yeah.
But you can also set up breakpoints and press F5.
F5,
and instead of refreshing the page, it knows, hey, you want to run this.
That always gets me.
And you can see the same notification. Okay, we've published an application. So I go open that application. And now you can see at the URL that it's not my local host.
No,
because
it isn't.
It's not running locally.
And it's forewarning.
So what GitHub does is they have created that environment that you run into, and they've also just made sure that you can use that for debugging purposes. So it can just connect for the port, and then you can just run locally. So as you can see, it's waiting now.
Yeah.
Is it working? Of course it's working, because I had a breakpoint.
You had a breakpoint. Oh, I forgot about that.
So also debugging works seamlessly.
Across browser tabs and to some cloud.
So at this point I would just go continue on that breakpoint, and you see the page is loading.
It's loaded.
And it's saying hello.
It's live, so he didn't cheat.
And it's very live.
Wow. What would be the use case between for this browser version, so to speak, instead of the... So
it's basically just another step in just eliminating the need to set up a local environment, set up a local machine, and maintain your computer and make sure the preparation needed to start coding. Microsoft and GitHub are really just trying to get everyone just getting started instead of getting people busy with reading tutorials that are outdated and versioning and conflicts and that sort of thing. So they just want people just to code. Okay. And that's basically just what this does. And this is awesome because this also means you don't really need a very heavy machine anymore. No. Because in the old days we needed a lot of powerful machines. Yeah. But now you just need a browser. That's it.
That sounds cool, and even me with my test mind.
Yeah, it's amazing because you can just you don't even have to pull that image from your colleagues, because how this works is you can create a code space for each branch inside a repository. So if someone says to you, "Hey Bram, can you test this for me? It's on this branch." You don't have to need to pull that and make sure that the change you had locally are kept safe or before they are undone. You can just go into Codespaces, check it out, see if it works, and you say yes, it works, and you just throw away your code space again, and that's it.
So all the extra that I have to do to make sure that it's the same version, that it's the same setup, the same everything, just gets taken out of my hands.
Yeah, and especially for you, it also means as a tester, you can very easily test two pull requests at the same time.
Compare them.
So you're busy with one, you say, hey, I see this small change, can you adjust it? And while that person is adjusting that change, you can also go to another without having to going back and forth between branches and maybe setup and configuration and whatever needed.
Actually, that takes a lot of my time.
You just need a browser with support for 2 tablets.
And and a helpful developer.
And a helpful developer.
Yeah.
So, but maybe you're like me and you say, okay, a browser development, I don't know. I still love my own EDA on my local machine with my own configuration.
Well, you're pretty convincing. This is pretty convincing.
But that's also possible because if we go into the menu, you can also just say, okay, but Codespace, great, but I really want to just program inside my own EDA. So you're going inside that. You just start up your Visual Studio Code. It says, hey, do you want me to open that Codespace? I say, yes, please. And it just opens the code space on that local machine.
So that's another benefit. So if you're...
so you see at the right bottom, it's setting up a remote connection. Yep. It was just so fast that I had no time to demo it. But the cool thing about this is, again, if I just press F5 here...
It will run it,
It will run it, but it will run it. And voila. It runs it on my local
So machine. It's even smart, like, I see that.
You see that I have the 127 URL. And if you go into my Docker desktop, it wasn't open yet. Should say something, because it's not really having a local image on my machine. No. So the everything is still hosted in GitHub, but you can see it's exited. So there's nothing running. 60 minutes ago, that was something else. So there's no active containers running, so it's still running in GitHub Codespaces in the cloud.
So it's via a connection.
Yeah, via a remote connection.
So connected. Yeah.
So in the case of Visual Studio Code, you need a GitHub Codespaces extension. Yeah. You can easily install that extension in Visual Studio Code. The only downside from this is you need an active internet connection.
Okay, so, but then again, you can put it in your dev container if you really need to.
Yeah, so that's what I think would be amazing, because you can, it's basically the same configuration. So you have that dev container and you can pick and choose. Okay, do I want to just quickly run this in a Codespace, or do I want to dive into it and put it locally and run it locally? You have that option because it's just the same configuration, but it's still the same configuration.
Yeah. How would you recommend people? Well, because this is all very exciting, and now I want to try it as well. So how would I take this to my team? How can I onboard them?
So basically, the only thing you actually really need to do is just add that dev container configuration file.
That's it.
And then you can get started.
With anything. Oh.
Yeah, and if you have a few colleagues that are a bit hesitant, they can still just work locally. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's very easy to add that option and give that option to people that really want to use it.
It's really fast to implement then?
Yes.
And there's basically not a lot of risk?
No, not really. Because, of course, you're running something in the cloud, hosted by GitHub Codespaces, so there is some cost involved.
Okay, of course.
Let's take a look at that. If we go to the pricing page, you will see Microsoft GitHub is using a core hours pricing model. So basically it says for each core your machine, your GitHub Codespace is running on, you pay a certain amount.
Okay.
So you have the option to choose what kind of GitHub Codespace you want.
Yeah.
So in the example, what I did is when you just started a Codespace like that, it just runs the default Codespace, and that's a virtual machine with 2 vCores.
Okay.
But if you want to, you can also go to 4, 6, or 8 vCores if you have a heavier solution that really needs more power.
Yeah.
And you're basically just paying for each core that you're using for an hour.
Okay.
The great thing is you get storage and computing free.
Okay.
So storage is 15 gigabytes and 120 core hours each month free.
Okay.
So if you're running on a minimum of 2 vCores, that means you can program for 60 hours each month for free.
Okay, that's not
And if you have a GitHub Pro plan, you can have some more. But after that, you're going to pay for each core by the amount of time you're using it.
Okay.
So it's really just pay for what you use.
Pay as you go, yeah.
And that means that if you go to the GitHub Codespaces website, and I refresh this, you will see that I have a GitHub Codespace configured. So you can see here it's running, it's active. You see it's 2 cores, it's using 1.46 gigabytes.
Yeah.
But I can also just say, okay, I want to stop this. So I'm not working anymore, I want to stop it so the payment doesn't continue. It's also smart enough to know from, I'm not being used, I'm going to auto stop.
Okay.
But there's always a bit of a delay in. So if you know you're going to stop, you can just stop it yourself.
Yeah. You're not getting charged unnecessarily. They're trying
to help you in that, but there's always a bit of delay.
But it's a cloud thing, right? Pay as you go.
Exactly.
You pay what you need.
So you can also just at this point say, I want to change the machine type, so I want to upgrade something. But from this point, you can also open it, so in your browser or in your Visual Studio Code. But you can also delete it if you say, okay, I'm done with it, I'm deleting it. And it just gets cleaned up.
Nice.
And there's that.
And it does probably smart stuff on the back end. It does auto-scanning for you, maybe?
No, not really, because you don't really need that. Okay. So it's just,
of course,
you can just say what you need, and then it just gives you that. Okay. And if you find that your solution is a bit larger, a bit heavier, or you're doing some more computing, or, especially when you're debugging maybe, you can always say, okay, I'm going to upgrade that machine to a bit more usage for vCores or storage.
Well, sounds exciting. So all I need is a willing developer and an account.
Yeah.
And then we're done.
So it's just a normal GitHub account.
Yeah.
So everyone can get started like in minutes. It's really crazy how fast these days you can really start with coding and adding value instead of being busy with all kinds of things you don't really want to be busy with.
Exactly. Wow. Nice. It's also nice for demos, I think.
Very nice for demos. This demos was very easy to set up, and if something goes wrong, you can just
And also for your business, just take it and show it
Yeah.
for prototyping and stuff. You've given me a lot of ideas again. So
Exactly. No, great.
thank you. Another chore on my list to get across to my dev team.
At least this one is very easy to get started with, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, they always like when I tell them easy stuff. So hey, this is really good and it's easy. Then they're happy with me, and well,
I'm sure they will be happy with using this.
I really see the benefits. So thank you.
Too. Yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully
you.
you guys enjoyed it as well. I'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.